today's Top Boxing News.
I think it's something that has to be looked at in more detail, because you're hearing different sides of the stories, different arguments. You know, international fighters that have been around her for years, boxed her for years, beaten her, got the better of her in sparring, who said, no, hang on a minute, this is, and then other organisations who are saying, absolutely not, this is ridiculous. And I think it's very unfair to the individual, if the facts that we're talking about are correct, that she should necessarily be treated like that without a real factual look from people who make opinions, and me as well. So the only opinion I can give you is what I just told you, being straight, being honest. And obviously, from a commercial point of view, she's become a huge name and a huge star. But we must make sure that safety in boxing is paramount. It is a level playing field, and I think the situation on a broader level has to be reviewed.
Well, it sounds good, Eddie, but the level of review, scrutiny you're describing might be more than Khelif is willing to subject themselves to. You say that it's unfair, the way the fighter has been treated, what people have been saying. But what people have been saying is not a baseless accusation. It's all based on Khelif and one other fighter having been banned for having male chromosomes. So where Eddie Hearn might think it's unfair, the way the fighter has been treated, some would say it's unfair having a biological male competing against biological females. I saw Khelif speak to a media outlet in the fighter's native Algeria earlier this week, saying, the politicians who are oppressing me, they don't have the right to say that I'm transgender. Khelif is refuting those claims. Khelif is saying the whole world knows that I'm a Muslim girl, not transgender. It is important to make this distinction as the conversation continues well after the Olympic Games are over, that Khelif is not a trans person, nor does the fighter claim to be. The fighter is not a member of the LGBTQ community, and thus this case should not be conflated with a trans rights case, as Khelif is not a trans person. Ever since all of this started, I've seen so many members of that community co-opt conversation as if it pertains to them and members of their own community when it doesn't. Then what does this pertain to, and what is all the hullabaloo about? The center of the controversy is a question. If an athlete's unique biology constitutes an unfair physical advantage over the other athletes in a given category, should they be allowed to compete? Even if there are some similarities with Khelif's situation and other conversations happening in a different sphere, it is important not to pair them up. And that's what I see a lot of people doing. That's what I've seen a lot of people doing ever since all of this started. Just takes away from the crux of it all. For the purposes of efficacy and safety within a contact sport, what should determine who competes within a given category? Should it be as simple as their documentation, their passport, or should it be based on something more comprehensive? Scientific. Saw a report from the Daily Mail that stated Khelif's coach, George Cazorla, has confirmed that the tests identified a problem with the athlete's hormones and chromosomes, suggesting that she may have the XY gender chromosomes typical of a man. This poor young girl was devastated to suddenly discover that she may not be a girl, he told French magazine Le Point. How could this have happened? It's been speculated in many circles that Khelif may have a sexual disorder, that the fighter may have been born with female genitalia outwardly and thus was assigned female at birth. Explaining the pictures you've been seeing of Khelif as a child, wearing dresses and looking very much like a little girl. Somewhere in between the time the fighter hit puberty and now, something changed and they started to have more masculine traits, a more masculine appearance that could be a byproduct of a sexual development disorder. It's not just about how things look. It's not just about appearances. The fighter was tested, and at least according to the IBA, they have a male karyotype. So shouldn't that be enough to exempt them from competing in a women's category for what is a contact sport? Given the dangerous nature of this one, shouldn't all the facts be laid out on the table? Eddie's saying that we have to get to the facts. Well, the IBA claims to have them, and they claim this fighter's got a male karyotype. Now, if you don't want us to take it from them, you don't want us to believe them because you believe they have an agenda, then shouldn't somebody else conduct a test? Somebody who's impartial. I saw Eddie Hearn's site, the fighter's social media following and enhanced profile ever since this controversy started, as an avenue of opportunity for a promoter. However, social media metrics are not all they're cracked up to be. You look at Ryan Garcia, for example, he's got something like 12 million followers on Instagram, but 12 million people didn't buy his last fight. In fact, less than 1 million bought his fight. So of the 12 million people that follow Ryan, what percentage of those people are actually paying customers? Apply that same formula to Khelif. If now has something like 2 million followers and counting on social media, what percentage of those people are actually going to pay their hard-earned dollars for a ticket to be there, see the fighter fight? What percentage? On social media, where everything is basically free and it doesn't cost you anything to follow someone, it's possible to amass a following like that. I mean, I see plenty of girls on Instagram that have big followings just for having big asses. Big titties. Titties. You have to look a little deeper, as social media metrics are not all they're cracked up to be. You have to look a little deeper, as there are other nuances that you have to account for. And if that social media following, however big or small it is, doesn't translate into dollars, then it doesn't matter how many followers you have on Instagram. The people following the fighter on Instagram or some other social media platform, where are they based out of? Are they based out of Algeria? Because a lot of fights don't happen in Algeria, and Algeria is not one of the premier boxing markets. So if the majority of people following Khelif are from her home region, what says that you can sell this fighter to Brits? What says that you can sell this fighter to Americans? Those are the premier boxing markets. There's a lot more to it than just who follows you on Instagram. That's free. Prize fighting isn't. So like every other element we see in this situation, more analysis is required. A lot of people want this to just be a feel-good story, but there's a lot more to it than just that, and a lot more at stake. If safety is what's paramount, within that sphere, there are more questions that need more answers. Men's junior middleweight news. His Excellency Turki Alalshikh conducted a brief Q&A yesterday in the wee hours of the morning with Charlie Parsons. His Excellency has declared that he believes Terence Crawford only wants to fight Canelo Alvarez and doubts he'll accept his offer to face Virgil Ortiz next. I don't think Crawford wants to fight anyone except Canelo. We have a signed contract, and I think they signed. It's almost finished with William Zepeda, and with Virgil Ortiz, we will do something for them with Golden Boy. We are discussing now with Shakur and Haney to have them on cards. We are close to doing Shakur versus Joe Cordina. We talked about that in another video. Focusing on this, Terence Crawford and who his next dance partner might be. Is it going to be Canelo? Is it going to be Virgil? Is it going to be Boots? His Excellency was asked about a Crawford versus Boots fight, and what he said was, it's a great fight, but not the top fight we want to see. I don't think Crawford will fight anyone except Canelo. We give him an offer for Virgil Ortiz. I don't know if he'll take it or not. We have an agreement to do a big fight for Ortiz if Crawford doesn't take the fight. So wait a minute, Turkey doesn't want to make Crawford versus Boots. His words, it's a great fight, but not the top fight that we want to see. And some are still trying to make it Terence Crawford's fault when Turkey's the one saying they're not interested in that. Turkey's the one saying that's not the fight they want to see. Yet I still notice some fight fans out there, really Canelo Alvarez fans, and it's very obvious that they are, asking disingenuous questions in bad faith. Why doesn't Bud want Boots? Let me jog your memory of something here. A little over a year ago,
Boots and that they reached out. Were those talks ever really tangible?
I saw some stuff about people talking about, like, some discussions with BLK Prime.
You know what I mean? We was trying to set up a fight with him last month because BLK people called us.
I wouldn't characterize that as a discussion. There was a discussion.
I said, yeah, we'll take him in a heartbeat, just like that, right? And they said, all right, let's sit down and talk. I said, you got to talk to my people first, though. Showtime.
Yes, but the reality is, they don't have a deal with Crawford.
I never signed nothing with Showtime.
If Crawford's under contract to BLK Prime, then maybe it goes through that. But the reality is,
with no signing, no contract,
they're trying to put together a fight just like we're trying to put together a fight. So the reality is, it was a very short conversation. They didn't really bring much to the table in terms of helping make the deal. So there really was no point in following up on that yet.
See, I'm loyal to Showtime because I'm going to tell y'all.
If there's going to be a Boots and a fight between Boots and Crawford, there are easier ways to do it without going through them.
See, I'm loyal to Showtime because I'm gonna tell y'all, I never signed nothing with Showtime. They fair with me, I'm fair with them, with no signing, no contract.
It's already a well-known fact that the people at Black Prime, before the Crawford versus Spence fight got made, before any of that took place, it's already a well-known fact that the people at Black Prime reached out to Boots to do a fight with Terrence. But Bozy Ennis, Jaron Ennis' father, was more concerned with maintaining fealty, loyalty to Showtime. And he admitted that himself. That's not me connecting dots. It's not me paraphrasing. They were more focused on staying loyal to a platform they don't even have a contract with. And once again, that's not me connecting dots. That's not me paraphrasing or putting words in anyone's mouth. That's what Bozy Ennis said. They didn't have a contract with Showtime. So if you ain't got a contract with them, what are you so focused on staying loyal for? You wanted Crawford? There he was. You could have had him. I think about the past. How as far back as January of 2022, Jaron Ennis was ranked number 2 via the WBO, and that if he really wanted that fight with Terrence, he would have been fighting in WBO eliminators, not IBF eliminators, not for a belt that Terrence didn't even have at the time, if Terrence were who he wanted. It seems obvious to me he didn't want him. You'll say, well, that's in the past, and the past is the past. Let's focus on the present. Why can't he fight him now? Why can't they do it now? Maybe it's because Eddie Hearn, who promotes Jaron Ennis, said Jaron Ennis must unify before facing Crawford at 154. His words. Not mine. Just yesterday, Eddie Hearn stated they've made a sizable offer to Mario Barrios so they can unify titles with Jaron Ennis. That's what he said. Do you need me to say it slower? Are you not looking at the screen, or are you not paying attention? It's the Boots people that want to stay at 147. It's the Boots people that want to unify first. Just like it was the Boots people that could have had this fight already over a year ago, but they were more focused on staying loyal to Showtime. Here and now, they're more focused on unifying 147. So do me a favor and cut the shit. Cut the crap. Guys argue in bad faith all the time, trying to make it Terrence Crawford's fault that he hasn't fought Boots yet. Can't you tell? Boots doesn't want to fight him. Eddie doesn't want to make it. Turkey doesn't want to make it. Being honest, I think the only reason you're even talking about that fight is to take the attention away from somebody else. From some other fight. Some other fighter that you're more fond of. You're using Boots as a shield the same way the Spence fans were using Boots as a shield. That's the only reason you would still be bringing him up. You're still bringing him up. It's a deflection tactic. That's all that is at this point. As far as Virgil Ortiz and trying to make a fight with Virgil Ortiz, Turkey says they'll give him an offer for Ortiz, but he doesn't know if Terrence Crawford will take it. He doesn't know. We don't know. What we do know is that after Virgil's last fight, after the outcome was decided and the judges' scorecards were read, Virgil called out two fighters by name, and Terrence Crawford wasn't one among them. That's what we do know. The guy asked him, what do you want to do next? And he said he wants to fight the winner of Fundora versus Spence next. Those are Virgil's own words, not mine. Once again, I'm not paraphrasing, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. That's literally what he said. In tandem with previous reports that Virgil had already rejected a Crawford fight 2 times via the WBO, which I totally believe, since in September of 2022, he was ranked number 1 via the WBO. But who did he petition for a fight? The WBA. Virgil didn't want it. I don't think Virgil wanted that fight then. I don't think Virgil wants that fight now. The question is, does Terrence want that fight? The way it sounds, Turkey's saying that the only fight that Terrence really wants is the Canelo fight. He doesn't know if he'll accept an Ortiz fight. But that doesn't change the past. What has already been documented, what has already been said, what has already happened, none of that changes the past. The way I see it, Canelo knocks out Crawford, and Crawford knocks out Ortiz. If they manage to make a Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford fight, I'm sorry to say, as much of a fan of Crawford as I am, I think Canelo's going to be too big, too strong for him. That if you struggled with Madrimov at 154, you'll lose to Canelo at 168. If you had to respect Madrimov's power at 154, you will succumb to Canelo's power at 168. There's really no shame in that? Not for the fighter, but for the fighter's fans, who have been tearing down Canelo Alvarez and trashing him, saying that he's not any good, he's this and that, and Terrence is going to do this and that. Well, maybe they might be ashamed of themselves. But I do think Crawford loses that fight. As far as Crawford versus Ortiz, I think Crawford knocks him out. I think Crawford wins that fight. Between what I saw from Virgil in the Igis Kavaliauskas fight and the more recent Sergey Bohachuk fight, Virgil's a good fighter. I'm not saying that he isn't, but stylistically, Terrence has the edge. He would have the drop on him. Virgil's gonna stay in character through and through. He's a combination puncher, a volume puncher, an aggressive guy. You go trying to stand in front of Terrence Crawford, letting combinations go, he's gonna catch you in between, and he's gonna put you out. Sergey Bohachuk put you down. He put you down 2 times, and your fanboys are still trying to explain that away. Defense is not Virgil Ortiz's speciality. Offense is, and it is that offense that would work against him, against Terrence Crawford. Virgil's only ever been the distance once, just once, and that was in his last fight with Sergey Bohachuk. Before that, he had never been 12 rounds before. I don't think he has the engine for a Crawford fight. The engine, the experience. I don't think he has it. So if they make the fight, I have Crawford winning the fight. The question is, are they going to make the fight, since Crawford's focus is solely on Canelo and fighting Canelo? And if you can't fight Canelo, what are you going to do? You might as well retire then. I don't have time for this shit. I really don't. If it's Canelo or bust, if it's Canelo or nobody, then just retire. Hang him up. Retire undefeated, a 4-division champion, and call it a career, because you can't rely on Canelo to do what you want him to do. You can't rely on him to play ball. That's not how he does things. He does what he wants whenever he wants to in his time, not yours. And if that's the only fight you're interested in at this point in your career, when you're in your mid to late 30s, a 4-division champion, still unbeaten and still ranked as one of the best fighters in the sport, if that's the only fight you want but you can't get it, then you might as well hang him up. Let's not drag this out anymore, because all of this is becoming monotonous and repetitive. We don't know what Canelo Alvarez is going to do after the Edgar Berlanga fight, but things don't seem to be going smoothly between him and Turkey. Negotiations for a Crawford fight may never get off the ground, and I'm sick of talking about it.